Strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Welcome to Ask the Experts radio show, proudly sponsored by board-certified family law attorney Tina Lewert of Lewert Law, LLC. Sit back for the next half hour as host Steve-O interviews top experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Steve-O offers such educational topics as community association law, family law, chiropractic care, employment law, healthcare law, and public insurance adjusting. Interviews by top experts in their field. And now, here's your host, Steve-O.
Hey, good evening. Boy, am I feeling better. Rid of COVID and pneumonia, and I'm feeling good, and I'm so lucky. I mean, I didn't have to go through all that crazy stuff, but take care of yourself out there. Be careful. We saw yesterday that Governor DeSantis was telling kids to take their mask off. So, but who knows? Anyhow, all I know is tonight is Ask the Experts. Tonight, without a doubt, every first Thursday of the month is without a doubt, not only is it my favorite show to do, but it is just grown so much over the years. And it's almost become a full-time job just to handle your questions, but we love them. So keep sending them in. We have with us tonight, God, he's becoming a household name now here in South Florida. He's with us the first Thursday of the month. It's the K. Bender Rimbaum law firm. They do association law. And if you're a board member or you're with a management company or you live in a condo or HOA community and you've got a question, give us a call tonight at 888-565-1470. 888-565-1470. We have board-certified attorney Robert K. Good evening, Mr. K.
Good evening, Steve. Great to have you back.
Well, I'm glad to be back, but I got to tell you, I'm just, we're just so pleased the letters that we get from our listeners and the questions are great questions that you have, and we hope that we can help you answer some of your questions. And like I said, whether you're a board member or you are a management company or you are a resident at a community, please either give us a call at 888-565-1470, or you can go to my text, which is 954-336-3765. We've got so much to go over tonight, and I can't wait to get started, but, it seems like Robert... No. I was wondering, usually our phones start buzzing right now. And we have a system that Freddie put together that's really good, but we don't see the callers yet. But we know that you're there, and we will get to you, I promise you. But Robert, tell everybody about your firm.
Okay, for all you new listeners out there, K. Bender Rimbaum is a full-service community association firm with offices in Pompano Beach, Palm Beach Gardens, and Tampa, providing all the legal services needed for associations on a day-to-day basis. We deal with anything from reviewing your documents, giving opinions as to your rights and obligations, addressing covenant violations internally, collecting of unpaid assessments, negotiating contracts for you with contractors, addressing construction defects, defending the association from claims that are made. Anything that can happen on a day-to-day basis in any community, we're there to provide assistance on all the legal needs. Continuously since 1992.
Well, I got to tell you, a lot of the letters we get are from your clients telling us how happy they are with your firm. Let's get into questions before we start. We got so many questions here, and then phone calls, and then we got to make sure to talk about the events that you've got, seminars you've got coming up this month.
We got a few coming up in March, yes.
So let's go to, and I remember this name, Barry in Miami. Good evening, Barry.
Yeah. Hi, Steve-O. Hi, Robert. I'm glad you're feeling better, Steve-O.
Thank you. I recognize your name. You're a good listener to the show.
Well, the show's great.
Robert gets all the credit for that.
So my question is, our association has had an optional provision that it's optional to have homeowners insurance. We've had that for 21 years in our declaration. And we just amended our declaration to add a provision that says that homeowners insurance is required. But we didn't take out the earlier provision, so we have conflicting provisions in our declaration. One that says it's optional, and the other newer provision that says it's required. And my question is, do you look at the newer provision because that gives you can see what the intent is, or do you resolve it in favor of the unit owner where there's a conflict? I'm not sure where you would come out on this.
Well, when you amend your documents, the amendment, while it's newer than the original language, is viewed as a whole. So it isn't, you consider the newer things as more important than the older. So if you've got conflicting provisions, that becomes problematic from an enforcement perspective. And the rule of construction, or what a court would look at in deciding that when you've got conflicting provisions, it's going to be against the party seeking to enforce it. So if the association is the party that's seeking to compel having the insurance coverage pursuant to the newest amendment, and the owner's defending, saying it's optional, I don't have to, the court's going to go with the owner on that. So it's a good idea to fix those problems in your documents before you go into any kind of enforcement.
Okay, I appreciate that. I see that's there was a 2020 decision that was right on point with what you said, that it's resolved in that manner. Can I ask you one more question?
Only you, Barry.
Sure.
Okay. What do you think of the new declaratory statement that says that board member emails written from their cell phone or their personal computer are available for inspection? Any unit owner can see them.
Well, I think that it was a mistake. I think that it's not in conformity with existing law, and it's really not applicable to anybody other than the party to the declaratory statement. What it does is it gives an indication of how the division would address something if it's brought to its attention. But the problem is that that decision is not supported by any case law, and it tends to run counter to what the statute provides. Board members can communicate by email. They just can't vote by email. Prior decisions have identified personal email accounts as personal. It's not official records until such time as something more formal occurs, if it's incorporated into the official records. If it's a dedicated email for the association, that's a much clearer picture. So I think that declaratory statement has created some unnecessary confusion in the entire communities.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You always got good questions, Barry.
Well, he has good answers. That's not my question. His answers are better than my questions.
We got a line open at 888-565-1470. Let's go to Michael in West Palm. Good evening, Michael.
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. Our condo association collects $1,000 security deposits from owners who want to be landlords. to be used in case a tenant damages association property. And if an owner has multiple rental units, we collect multiple $1,000 deposits. So someone might have $2,000 or $5,000 on deposit. If a landlord has multiple deposits and one of his tenants causes damage that exceeds $1,000, can the association use the combined multiple amount of deposits that one landlord has on deposit to pay the cost of one tenant's damage? Or are we limited to just $1,000 specifically deposited for that tenant's unit? Our documents don't specify.
The owner of the unit is responsible for damages caused by his or her tenant, regardless of the amount or the amount of the security deposit. I would not recommend that you use multiple units security deposit for damages caused by a specific tenant unless you have a provision in your documents to allow you to do that. Without an express provision to that effect, you'd be much better off using only the deposit for the specific unit and pursuing the owner for the damages in accordance with how your documents address that. Some documents allow you to take the repairs and make it a special assessment. Some documents don't, and then it's just becomes a collection action under a contract.
Okay, so without any specific language to the contrary, you think that if a tenant runs into the association gate and costs $2,000 in damages, that we should only take immediately the $1,000 from the landlords, unless of course the landlord's ready to write the check anyway, or the tenant's insurance, but to not invade the other deposit units and just take the one if we need to that tenant's associated with. Thanks a lot.
Okay, Mike, I wouldn't take the security deposit right away. I would try and collect from the landlord and the tenant for the damages first.
Yeah, no, it's just in case. Yes.
If you take the security deposit, they're going to have to replenish it to continue the tenancy.
Yes, it's just a timeliness thing, but you're absolutely right. Cool. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Don't tell him how right he is. He'll get a big head. We want to keep him level here. Let's go to Nancy in Boynton. Hi, Nancy.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Yes, ma'am.
So we have our elections, and the first round of elections was botched by our property manager when she put a cardboard box by our elevator for ballots. So our attorney said, no, that voids the election. So the election has been rescheduled, and the attorney, now costing us money, is going to count the ballots and such. So the attorney had sent a letter to the homeowners that the ballots had to be sent to the property manager's office. Now, I contacted the ombudsman's office, Mr. Hennings, I think his name is, and he said to me that owners, the association is required to also provide an opportunity for homeowners to come to the election and drop off their ballots in person. And I have shared that with the board, and because 3 board members are trying to get reelected, I'm sorry, but I think they're trying to rig the election, and they're fighting me on this legality. And I'm like, y'all, because they say I'm not a lawyer. I said, no, I'm not a lawyer, but I can read. And this Mr. Henning said that we have to provide the opportunity for owners to bring their ballots in person. So I want a third opinion on this, that is actually the case.
According to the condominium statute that addresses elections, the association is required to have at the place of the meeting extra ballots, envelopes, and a manner for owners to fill them out and deliver them there. And before the meeting can start, all the ballots are collected and none are open. Once the first one's opened, then no more can be accepted. So yes, the information you got from the ombudsman is in accordance with the statute that you should be able to deliver your ballot or even get a ballot when you arrive at the meeting place, fill it out properly, put it in the envelopes and sign it as required and deliver it on the spot.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to hang up because I want to record it on the live feed. Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.
You can also go to our website at kbrlegal.com, and it will be rebroadcast there as well.
Before we go to talking about events you've got, seminars you got coming up, let's go to Rodney all the way over in Orlando. Hi, Rodney.
Good evening. How are you?
Doing well.
And you?
Good, good. Well, thank you very much. I always enjoy your show and enjoy the advice. Have a situation, we just had our election, new board members have been seated, and there is one gentleman that is just reckless. I hate that he even was able to grab enough proxies to get on the board. We know he has some legal issues going on and things like that. And by Florida statute, of course, you know, a board member cannot be a convicted felon. So are we within our right, the rest of us board members, which constitutes the majority, could we be within our right to require a background check? We all could do it. We don't want to single him out, but could we even do that?
Yes, if you're going to adopt a rule for the association that all board members will be subjected to a criminal background check, and it applies to all members of the board, you certainly have the legal right to do that.
Okay, and can it be retroactive so that it covers the sitting board, or would it have to move forward from the time it's adopted?
It would from this day forward would include sitting board members.
Okay, no, not a problem. That sounds great then. And we happen to have a company that does background investigations for our tenants, so that could work out and we could utilize them.
Now, Rodney, you might also want to include candidates for the board so that maybe you can head that problem off before the election next time.
Okay, all righty. So they could be subjected to it even before the election. We could do the background check and make sure that they don't get seated if there's an issue.
Correct.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very, very much. You have a great evening, and thanks again. We'll be listening next week.
Thank you, Rodney.
All right, thank you.
All right,
So
bye-bye.
let's talk about Kay Bender-Rembaum, all the seminars you've got coming up.
It's a decent month and not overly busy, but there's some interesting things on the horizon. Starting on March the 8th at 12 noon to 1 p.m. in conjunction with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, the Division of Condominiums, there's going to be a panel discussion on electronic communications in condominiums. And one of the panel members is Allison Hertz from our Palm Beach Gardens office. The ombudsman, Spencer Hennings, who the prior caller had mentioned speaking to, will also be in participation. And there'll be some other professionals participating as well. It's not something for credit, but it is sponsored by the Division of Condominiums. And that's on the March 8th at 12 noon to 1 p.m. On March 9th, 7:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., a live meeting at the Doubletree Hilton in Palm Beach Gardens, painting projects, planning, and painting technology. Peter Mullengarden from our Palm Beach Gardens office will be in attendance. It's hosted by TSK Education. There's a breakfast networking group involved. Rudy Forjan will be providing the instruction from Regal Paints. So that's an interesting meeting at 7:30 a.m. and March the 9th. And then on March 23rd, 12 noon to 2 p.m., HOA board member certification via Zoom, hosted by Campbell Property Management with Jeff Rembaum and Olivia Cato from our Palm Beach Gardens office. That's continuing education credits, plus gets board member certified, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Then on March the 29th, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., Condominium and HOA board member certification, a combination course live via Zoom with Peter Mullengarden as the instructor, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m., March the 29th. And then on March the 30th, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m., there'll be a condominium board member certification via Zoom. Andrew Black from Fort Lauderdale office will be providing the instruction then. 5:30, 7:30 p.m. board member certification, March the 30th. That's what we have for March.
Wow, that's sort of a busy month. Hey,
Yeah.
if this is a great time if you've been trying to call in, the number's always busy. Now is a good time to do it at 888-565-1470, 888-565-1470. If you have a question for Attorney Robert Kay regarding association law, whether it's HOA or if it's condo law, give us a call now. Again, it's 888-565-1470. We get probably about 30 to 40 emails between, I guess, from the first of the month towards the end of the month, and we like to read these on the air, and we hope some of these will maybe answer some of your questions. I want to start with Kip from Boca. Kip wants to know, do you think it will ever be mandatory for some type of education for board members? That's a good question.
I'm going to say I don't believe that will ever be mandatory, because once you do that, you're going to cut the pool of people willing to serve on the board dramatically. So it is a voluntary position. It is private communities. It's not a state agency. There is provisions in the law now that provides for education, but it's not mandatory. It's highly recommended. So I don't see any change of that in the near term or far term.
Robert, is it hard to get people to run for the board?
That's a community by community issue, but I'd say it is not a simple task, because it does involve some commitment by the individuals to participate in their community. Again, it's a community by community situation. And some places they have lots of volunteers. Some places it's like pulling teeth and you get the same people over and over again. Sometimes it feels like a closed fraternity, and that if you're not part of the in crowd, you can't get in. So it's really going to depend on the community. I think it's a good idea for anybody that owns in a mandatory association to participate in the association functions, if not serving on the board, certainly going to board meetings, possibly serving on committees if they exist in the community, being involved in the operation, being aware of what's going on. That's important. And the more people that do that, those communities tend to run better and smoother, and the people tend to mostly get along better. But there's always going to be some turmoil.
I'm going to go to Gary in Fort Lauderdale. Loves your show. Who doesn't? Is it considered a meeting on voting on Facebook?
No, you can't have a meeting on Facebook.
Okay.
In order to have a meeting, you have to have an ability for owners to attend and participate and hear everything that's going on. So you can do it on a Zoom platform or something like that. If you're doing it on a Facebook platform, it's got to be something that everybody has the ability to participate in. So I don't know that Facebook would allow for that. So I wouldn't recommend the Facebook method.
Here's I wonder if this is the same Barry that calls the show a lot. This is Barry, though, in Fort Lauderdale. He wants to know your feelings regarding a 15-year loan from banks to pay for special assessments.
Well, I don't really have a feeling for it, but I do have an opinion, and I think that
We'll
if
take that
that's
then.
right for if it's right for the community, then there's nothing wrong with it. Assuming the community can handle the 15-year payout, I imagine that any kind of a loan is going to be of a significant amount if it's going to be spread over 15 years. And so it would seem that doing a special assessment for that money could create financial burden within the community that otherwise could lead to more people not paying assessments and possible unit foreclosures, and that could be a domino effect that causes the finances of the community to have problems as well. So it's legal. There's no reason not to consider that if the circumstances warrant it, and so I'm in favor.
Before we go to break, I want to get this question in. Jason at Lake Clark Shores, he wants to know if you see it being impossible in the future to get a mortgage for a condo. He wants to know, does it look like you're going to have to have
Well, this is a little longer than a couple of seconds to answer, but
okay, so why don't we go to break, and we're going to answer, because we got to take
talk
a break
about
now.
mortgages and condos when we come back.
Good. Okay. Give everybody your phone number and your great website.
Reach us at 800-974-0680, info@kbrlegal.com, or you can just go to kbrlegal.com. There's a contact box that you can fill out, and we'll get back to you that way.
We're going to go to break. We'll be right back.
K. Bender Rembam is a full-service community association law firm dedicated to the representation of community associations throughout Florida, with offices in Pompano Beach, Palm Beach Gardens, Tampa, as well as in Miami-Dade by appointment. Several K. Bender Rembam attorneys are board-certified specialists in condominium and plan development law, and they assist clients with all matters of community association legal issues while keeping them up to date on new developments affecting their associations. K. Bender Rembam is also a well-known provider of free legal education, which often includes CE credit for managers and state certifications for board members. Contact K. Bender Rembam today by calling 800-974-0680. That's 800-974-0680 to reach any of their locations. You can also visit them online at kbrlegal.com or just write to them via email at info@kbrlegal.com.
And we're back. This is the Ask the Expert show. We're with you every Thursday night from 6 to 7 drive time. And we talk about, we have experts in legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Our first show of each month from 6 to 7 is our association law show with K. Bender Rembam. They've been with us for about 4 years. It is without a doubt our hottest show we have. And board certified Robert Kay, who's a senior partner, K. Bender Rembam.
The seniorist.
Seniorist takes time out every month to answer your questions. And we were just getting ready to, Jason from Lake Clark Shores is concerned about mortgages and what's going to happen with condos.
Well, there is an issue that has come to light recently with the secondary mortgage market providers, commonly referred to as Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, by the government entities that buy mortgages on the secondary market. They put out requirements for questionnaires be filled out by associations that are far more detailed than what Florida statutes requires. And in order to qualify for mortgages, associations are finding themselves in a position of having to provide answers to these questions that might be problematic to them, might not be, depending on the situation. And it's going into details of things involving the physical aspects of the community and many other things that associations might not necessarily want to get involved with filling out. There's potential liability that goes with it as well. There has been some requests made to the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac people to perhaps delay implementation of this difficult process to give the Florida legislature an opportunity to put forth their new legislation on the issues of reviewing structural and reserve situations in condominiums and get that established. Maybe put this questionnaire requirement off for a year or so. It's under consideration. Whether or not that's going to happen is still up in the air. But if your condominium does not fill out the form, is unwilling to do so, then the chances of getting a mortgage become very difficult unless you go to something that's not going to be sold on the secondary market, or you might have to go with private money,
right? But
then you're paying a much higher interest rate. So difficult, yes. Impossible, not necessarily, but there's still a lot of things that have to happen before we know for sure on that.
Okay. I have a Sam from Davie. He is a HOA, I guess he's a board member. They're very concerned about the trees that are hanging over other people's houses, that if there's a storm, and he cannot get the other board members to do anything about it. And now they have, I guess, residents who are really upset that want to take recourse. So his question actually is, can they take recourse if we don't get this settled?
Well, I think there's a lot of facts and circumstances that need to be known before you can say for sure what's what with that. I mean, the documents will spell out requirements with the trees, where they're located is important. Are they on the lots? Are they outside the lots? Owners have the ability to trim things that are hanging over their property across the property line, even though they're coming from a different property or a common area. And the law doesn't put obligations on the owner of the property where the tree is located unless there's documented negligence on their part that lead to the damage that's occurred. The fact that there's trees with limbs that are over other property doesn't necessarily mean they're going to break off in a storm, although it's not unreasonable to think it could happen. Associations need to have a generally periodic plan in place for tree maintenance to make sure they're keeping the trees in as best of a condition as possible in light of the potential of a storm, so that nobody is rushing around like crazy as the storm's approaching trying to trim the trees. Whether or not there's going to be liability to the association or the possibility that the owners can bring a claim against the association for not addressing the trees is really needs to be more facts before I can say for sure.
Okay. If you'd like to call into the show, the number here is 888-565-1470.
Is that Jason? He can call and tell us about his trees.
Yes. Our phone number here is 888-565-1470. Here's Sienna from Palm Beach. She lives in a condo. The board sent me a letter that my boyfriend who lives with me has to get a background check now, and the cost is $100. Are they allowed to do that?
Well, the answer to that, Sienna, is maybe. It depends on the language of your documents, the declaration of condominium, and how it deals with occupants of the units, and whether or not it requires, after a certain period of time, that they be subject to approval of the association and putting in an application and getting a background check, which the $100 is meant to cover. So yes, it's possible, but whether or not they can in your condominium, you'd have to check your documents to see.
Okay. Here's actually a new client of yours, Billy in Palm Beach. And we get a lot of questions like this. He says, our condo association just became a client of yours. My question to you is how to get more handicap parking. We never have enough.
Well, handicap parking is something that a lot of communities, I think, misunderstand. The handicap parking is generally not supposed to be for the residents. It's supposed to be for guests. And a lot of times handicap residents who otherwise have assigned parking spaces because they're handicapped are parking in the handicap spot. And associations sometimes allow it, sometimes they don't, but there's only a limited number of handicap parking, generally speaking. And if somebody needs an accommodation to have the use of a handicap spot or alter the property to create a new one for them, that's something that could be done if the proper procedure is followed. But to add handicap parking, you're going to have to reconfigure your parking lot. You're going to have to check your documents to see whether or not you need an owner vote to do that. Once you start messing with your parking lot, you're likely going to have to file with the municipality for a permit, and then you have to meet whatever code requirements there are relative to the layout of parking spaces. And it becomes potentially difficult and time-consuming and expensive. There's also the possibility that you have to revise your plat, which is on file with the municipality. When they first approve the development of the community, there's an approved plat that lays out the parking, and the parking is supposed to be in accordance with the plat. So there's a lot of issues that have to be addressed before you can simply make such a change like that.
Okay. Let's go to our phones. Let's go to Wes in Cape Coral. Good evening, Wes.
There's also the possibility that you have to revise your plat. Turn down your radio.
Okay, try again.
When they first approved the development of the community, there's an approved plat
Wes?
that lays out the parking and
Yes.
Okay, you're live.
So need to turn down your radio.
I was wondering if you could tell me that you talked previously about.
Go to our phones. Let's go to
Turn up, Wes. Turn your radio down because we're hearing it.
There's also the possibility that
I was wondering, back to the question you had before about the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac applications that are pending. If they do not, if the board does not fill them out, will the condo association be liable?
there's no legal obligation in the association to participate in filling out these forms for these secondary lenders. They would be doing it as a courtesy to assist owners that are in the process of trying to get financing, but currently there is no legal obligation to do so.
Does that answer your question?
There's no legal obligation in the association to participate in.
Don't listen to your radio, Wes.
You got to turn it down and just listen to us on the phone.
Yes. Are you there, Wes?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have another question?
No.
Okay. Thank you for calling, Wes.
And listening.
And listening. If you'd like to give us a call here, we have a line open now at 888-565-1470, 565-1470. We have an email I got from Julie in Boynton. I love your show. Thank you for all the information you give us. I wish your show was on more often. My question is, does the CDC have any control over condo rules?
The CDC is part of the federal government in dealing with health issues overall for the country, and generally speaking, does not have any control over the private communities that are condominium homeowner associations. That being said, many communities are following the guidance of the CDC and have been throughout the coronavirus pandemic situation, so as to give them basically covers their responsibility. They have an outside independent agency that's giving the advice that they're following that's considered appropriate. But the CDC itself does not make laws or mandate situations that require associations to do anything.
Okay, let's go back to our phones. Christine in Deerfield. Good evening, Christine.
Yes, our bylaws, I live in an HOA. Our bylaws state that notice of meeting shall be in writing and mailed or delivered by hand. But they now email to all that have emails. And for those that don't have emails, they post on a community bulletin board. I thought that I read that the Florida law says that was amended for condos in 2018 to prohibit associations from satisfying legal notice requirements by posting on association property. I was wondering if this also applied to an HOA, because I hear that HOA and condo laws are different.
HOA and condo laws are different. There's different statutes that apply, and there are similarities between them. What you've described is a technical violation of the bylaws and failing to provide hand delivery of notifications. Are you talking about hand delivery to the board members or to all the members?
To any, well, our bylaws say that they used to mail to every owner. Now they only email to the email that they have on file, and in lieu of mailing by mail, they post it on a community board, and they say that satisfies their obligation.
Well, if your documents require a method of delivery that the board is not following, then they're in violation. The problem you face is there's no one to complain to. The Division of Condominium does not have jurisdiction over homeowner associations' failure to provide proper notice of meetings. That would require somebody to file a lawsuit in court to challenge the actions of the board, and most likely nobody's going to do that because it costs a lot of money and the ultimate result is not considered to be that big of a deal. So I think you have an issue that's more political than legal, and if you can't get the board to follow the law, the best method of resolution is to get the owners, enough owners together to either recall or replace at the annual election. And hopefully you have people willing to serve who might be more of a mind to follow the requirements of your documents.
Okay. Can I ask one more question? We are an HOA, but we're, what are we? We're really trailers or manufactured homes. Now, I know that the ombudsman told me that they don't do HOA, but are we considered a real HOA if we're
Yes.
manufactured homes, or are we under the Florida law for condominiums?
You're under Chapter 720 of Florida statutes would cover your community. I assume you own the land on which your manufactured home sits,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
correct.
there's declaration of covenants in place that applies to all the common areas and the use restrictions that you have. So that's basically
Correct.
what you would have in a homeowner association. There is another statute,
even though
Chapter
we are-
723.
Okay.
Chapter 723 applies to mobile home parks, but mobile home parks that applies to are those where there's a property owner that leases property to the manufactured homes, and that's a whole different set of laws that applies there. So that doesn't apply to you. You're a HOA.
Okay, so we are an HOA. All right, well, thank you
Yes.
very much.
Thank you.
All right, then. Thanks for listening.
Christine. Let's go to Ron in Port Charlotte.
Hello.
Hi, Ron.
Oh,
Okay. I wanted to know if you had any thoughts on if this bill I see would pass, or if it has, where condos would no longer be allowed to use pooled reserves.
well, there hasn't been
somebody told me about
any
that.
laws passed yet. The laws haven't passed yet. Personally, I'm not a big fan of pooled reserves. I think it's confusing and creates problems for communities, but as long as it's legal, it's legal. At this point, it's pending, and until the legislative session ends, we can't really say for sure, or until they actually approve it, which could be within the next week or so. So pay attention to that. We'll talk more about it next month.
Okay. I did have a couple other questions. I don't know if you could.
Yeah, we have some more time.
Okay. During an open board meeting, are member comments allowed, or are they guaranteed, or do they have to, should they be? I don't know.
For condominiums, homeowner association, and cooperatives, the statutes for each provide that at a board meeting, owners are required to be in attendance and allowed to participate on the agenda items. How and when is up to the board to decide. It could be before the meeting, it could be during the meeting as you're discussing each point, or it could be at the end of the meeting after the board has conducted all the business. The board is allowed to make procedures as to those issues, but owners do have an entitlement to attend and participate, so that would include speak.
Thank you. That clears something up for me. Can a board implement a no smoking policy that's inside your condo?
I'm sorry, say again?
Can a board institute a rules and regulations for no smoking inside your own condo?
Well, whether the board can do it inside the unit will depend on how the documents currently read. It's our recommendation that you put something like that in the declaration as an amendment, as opposed to by a board rule. The board can make such a rule for the common areas, the limited common areas, outside areas like patios. Within the unit is a little more difficult to do so without very specific language in the declaration. So we would prefer to see that done by an amendment as opposed to a board rule.
Very good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for listening.
You know, I wanted to tell everybody that we're adding a lot of platforms to the show that you can actually watch the show. And the big one is Odyssey. I think, Freddie, are we already on Odyssey? That's like one of the biggest now. We're on Roku now. We're on Facebook, Instagram. So you're going to have a lot of ways to listen and watch the show.
And kbrlegal.com.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You can watch it live there. I want to, one more time.
And you can watch the playback.
I want to, phone, we've got it. We could get another question in. Our number here is 888-565-1470, 888-565-1470. You can call us. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes. Julian Pompano wants to know if it's true no more than 15% of the units can be rentals.
Well, it's not true as a matter of law. What it is an issue that the mortgage industry looks at when they determine whether or not the community is one that they would allow for sales on the secondary market. 15% is not a problem. When it gets above 20 and 25%, then it becomes problematic from that perspective. Some communities amend their documents to limit the number of units that can be rented, and they can put a 15% number in there if they choose, but it's not a legal issue.
This is a really unusual, what is for me, because this is the first time I've seen a question like this before. I guess there's properties that have a separate budget for each of their condo buildings.
Multi-condominium association.
They want to know if it's possible to combine all the buildings together to make it easier, the budget.
Well, it's not an easy process, but what would be required is merging all the condominiums and creating one big condominium, and that takes 100% approval of all the unit owners and the mortgagees in the buildings. The law requires multi-condominiums after a date many, many years ago to have a separate budget for each of the condominiums within the association and a budget for those areas that they share in common. And the funds of one condominium cannot be used for another condominium, and you can't consolidate those monies and mingle them together and use them across the board. If a community of that nature wants to combine them all and put them into one condominium, while it's possible, it's extremely difficult and rare to actually accomplish that. We've done it in the past, but it depends on the size of the community and how many units there are in each. It only takes one holdout to mess up the problem or mess up the project, and I don't think that's something that's easily overcome.
I got to get this in. This is from Jack in Coral Springs. He is the president of his board. He said, I must tell you how much I love your show. I learn something new each month. He said, I just started attending your seminars, and you put on some of the best seminars. So I thought that was nice. He didn't have a question. I just wanted to say that he comes to your seminars.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought that was really nice. Is there, I hope this is not a silly question, is there a such thing? I mean, should any size condo, as to how many residents they have, if there's just 6 units, can they still use your services?
Well, certainly. We're not limited. We actually have some clients that are around that size. So if they have the need for legal services, we don't cut them at a specific unit number. So anybody's welcome.
So there's no such thing as you're too small to have Kay Bender Rimbaum to represent your condo.
Not too small nor too large.
No, I knew too large. That one I knew. Robert, sometimes we do this at the end of the show. Tell people why they should retain your law firm.
Well, we have experience and we provide service. I know we're running out of time, so I don't want to go too deeply into it, but we have a large number of board certified attorneys in community association specialties, and we're customer service oriented. We provide prompt, efficient, and easily understood opinions to our clients. And as you know, we are long-term in this industry, and I feel like we're running out of time.
Yeah, give everybody your phone number.
800-974-0680.
And the website.
kbrlegal.com. kbrlegal.com. You can email info@kbrlegal.com.
And we'll see you guys next week. And we'll see Robert the first Thursday of the month next month. Thanks, everybody, for joining in.
Thank you for tuning in today to Ask the Experts, sponsored by board-certified family law attorney Tina Lort of Lort Law, LLC. Join host Steve-O again next Thursday for more interviews with the top experts in South Florida in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement on Ask the Experts.